Hi all, and welcome to episode 1 of the All Gunners podcast. It's me, your host Zed, and I'm joined today by Harry. Harry, how are you, my friend?
I'm not too bad, Zed. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. First episode, to give the audience a bit of bearing, I just wanted to ask the very basic of basic questions, yeah? How did you become an Arsenal supporter?
Good question. Good question. Yeah, I mean, this is an easy one to answer. I mean, at school,
Yeah,
I was always distantly into football, but never really had a team as such, really, in terms of who to support. Actually, if I'm honest
yeah,
with you, my growing up, I was really into international football. Do you remember
yeah, yeah,
Romario?
yeah, yeah.
Back in the day, Brazilian Romario, and I used to always base myself as a sort of, I love that kind of Brazilian flair
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
thing. So I used to watch a lot of international football, and then there was obviously the R9. We remember
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
original
The
Ronaldo,
Ronaldo.
the Ronaldo. So it was football icons really that I was into, and then I got into. So it wasn't so much teams; it was more individuals I was into, and I used to love
Yeah,
skills. Many people, they've got like different characteristics and traits that they're into in football, but I used to love
yeah,
skills.
yeah,
The stuff that others can't do, that the individual talented guy. And I was into Kanu,
yeah,
Nwankwo
yeah, yeah,
Kanu.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and it's interesting because Kanu was, I believe at the time he was at Inter
Yeah,
Milan
Inter
playing
Milan,
with
yeah, yeah.
R9.
Inter Milan.
Yeah, and they were. I mean, don't even quote me on what year this is because I only remember it happening. I should really go back and have a trace back to see what years exactly this happened.
Yeah,
But this was the Olympic gold that Nigeria won against Brazil in the final. There was it was an Olympic
yeah,
year, so that should be easy to certainly go back and trace. But it was an Olympic year. R9, those guys around. Kanu scoring for fun and absolutely taking out Brazil, and Brazil were in their height
yeah.
then. So I was a Kanu fan first. I've got to admit this. I was a massive Kanu fan. I had a Nigeria top. I was really into Kanu. At school, the rivalry back then was very different, as you will
Yeah,
remember.
yeah.
It's not how it was now with the sort of money tycoon
Nah, nah,
companies
nah.
taking over. It was more United and
Yeah,
Arsenal,
the two horse race. Yeah,
the two horse race over all of those years. A little bit later, I think Chelsea then came into it with the money and
yeah,
stuff like
yeah,
that. But they took a few years to get going, and everybody was United at school.
yeah,
It was all United. It's all United. And don't get me wrong. I mean, my family were mostly United supporters, and my uncle, who's a great influence in my life, was a United fan, and I think he was doing his best to get me. But I was always that little bit of a odd one out, black sheep, whatever you want to call it, kind of thing,
yeah, yeah.
the rebel,
The
right?
rebel, the rebel. Yeah,
And Kanu then joined
yeah,
Arsenal, and that was it, because it was the whole all about Arsenal and United. As soon as Kanu joined Arsenal, all of my friends at school, my football friends and everyone just started, it just made sense. In fact, they used to call me Kanu, and because my surname is
yeah,
Khan, it naturally went into Harry
yeah, yeah,
Kanu.
yeah.
So I that's how I got into supporting Arsenal, and lucky, I suppose, for me at that point. I think leading up to that, I don't think there was too much great success, ongoing success, but certainly those were the years where United Arsenal would always come close to title. And then we've got obviously the title winning years that led into the
Yeah.
Invincible year as well, and then the rest is history, as they say.
The rest is written in history. The day.
Absolutely,
That's it. That's it.
absolutely. I still remember. You know what? It's that interesting actually, because Kanu did an interview. I don't know if you've seen it flying around on social media, on Instagram and whatnot. But Kanu's recently done an interview with the Bamiyang,
Oh, nice.
Bert Leno, and Lacazette,
Ah,
and they were asking each other about their heroes. It's really like quite reminiscent, really. And do you remember that goal, the hat trick against Chelsea back in the
yeah,
day?
yeah, yeah.
Again, don't quote me on the year. I should know the year, but it was Chelsea were 2-0 up at Stamford Bridge. This was Kanu came on as a substitute and basically banged 3 goals. But the third goal, Z, you remember this, was the one where he basically went to the byline and curled it in. Do you remember that goal?
Absolutely.
I mean, it gives me goosebumps talking about it, to be fair. But that's how I got into Arsenal, and I still followed Kanu's career thereafter. But I was too embedded in Arsenal even after he left to go.
The magic had captivated you, yeah.
Absolutely, and he was successful for them.
Yeah.
He was. Don't get me wrong. I've always loved players like Henry. Bergkamp is a great hero of mine. I always respected Arsenal. I think it's fair to say. They match my natural footballing DNA, if you want to call them. Attacking football. That kind of level. So it was just like a hand fitting a glove, really.
Nice. That's an excellent way of putting in the hand fitting glove. Wow.
What about yourself, Z? I mean, we know each other.
Yeah.
As gooners, but we've met quite late in life. It's fair to say, isn't it? We were gooners when we met.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Isn't it? It's fair to say. Yeah.
So I've never asked you this. What about you? How did you get into Arsenal?
This is a funny story. Actually, we've known each other for years. We've never asked a question to how we got into that. So
this is a podcast exclusive.
Absolutely, podcast exclusive. Yeah, years of knowing each other. The first time we're asking, wait, how did you get into the club with Sporting?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, it's actually not as glamorous as your story, to be honest. I'll be blatant, right?
That's a shame.
So back in like early 2000s, okay, I wasn't into football, right? I was never into football. I was very much into my cricket. I was, following the Test cricket. I was just the old kind of soul. It's like, I'll wait 5 days to enjoy cricket on the last day, right? So that was my passion. I used to play it, trying very, very hard to get into the school team as well. So all passion was cricket. But my classmates and my friends, they were very much into their football. And, you had your Liverpool fans, you had your Man U fans, right? Obviously, no plastic Chelsea fans at that time, right? There were some, real Chelsea fans. I'm offending people out there now, but right? But it was just I got cornered one day, and they were like, "You know what? All you do is talk about cricket. What football team you support?" And I was just like, "Crap! I've never seen a football game all the way through. I've seen some World Cup games here and there, and I like the flair. Watch the Champions League final because everyone's talking about it, so you got to watch it, right? I'm watching Zidane curling into the top with his volley, and I'm like, oh, you know what? This is good. This is a good sport. I'll watch it sometime. But I'm not actually actively into it, and I'm just looking around, all stressed, peer pressure coming on to you, like what club? And I'll just blurt out Arsenal. That's literally it. I just randomly blurted out Arsenal. And the only reason I make that link is because I'd watched France play and Henry was playing for them.
Right? Yes.
And I like the way he moved on the pitch, right? The way he'll carry the ball. And I'm like, you know what? Arsenal, he plays. That's all I know, right?
Yeah.
I say that, but all these years down the line, I've never deviated from it. I don't know what it was. I just started watching Arsenal because, for the sake of it, for the peer pressure, I thought, you know what, I'm going to watch a game or so. I've said it. I'm into it now, so I might as well do something.
But who were the main supporters? What were the main teams being supported at school? The token team?
The token team was always Man U, and there was some Arsenal supporters. So in a group of like 6 or 7 friends, 5 were what you call Man U, and then you had 2 Liverpool supporters. Liverpool, they were still high on their past success, and they will say, what you call, we won European Cups and all that kind of stuff. And Man U were like, we win Premier Leagues every year, man. What's the thing? And Arsenal were the only team going toe to toe with them. So I just randomly blurted that out, and to this day, I've never gone back on my word. I'm like, no,
been a fan
ever since. It's just started watching it, right? When I saw Vieira literally just carry the ball from midfield to, all the way to the final third, I'm like, bloody hell. It still gives me, I start shaking like, that is good football. It's enjoying. And Arsene Wenger just sitting on the side like, yeah, this is it. It's called a beautiful game, but only watching Arsenal they'll realize, it truly is a beautiful game. Right?
Yeah. And to be fair, around about that point you're talking about, that we were playing probably some of our best football ever
in history, man. Early 2000s I'm talking about, and it was the best team and the best football you play ever.
Wenger's peak, you would say, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. And it was just brilliant to watch. And to be fair, even through all the lows, and to be fair, I became an Arsenal fan at the very high. even through the lows, I've never once felt like, you know what, nah, I'll switch to someone else. I could have switched to Man City. I could have switched to Chelsea. I wasn't a big football fan back then, right? Chelsea suddenly started winning. Ashley Cole, who a player I liked because I would play wing back when I would play with my friends, moved to Chelsea, and I was like, you know what, I could switch, but no. I just felt like sticking to that club for some reason, and it was just values and the way they played, the way they carried it, that it just
I
ingrained in
think
me.
there's a term, isn't there, Z, that was bandied around back in our day, and that was glory hunter.
Absolutely,
They
absolutely.
used to say, and I don't think any of us could accuse us of that. To be
No,
fair,
not
because
anymore, mate.
I think for all of our absolutely sticking with them all of these years, for all of our club's kind of great history and what we've won, we've never ever been one of those teams that absolutely
No,
dominated for a decade or 5 years or a period of really, really long. So you could say that there's been success getting into the top four, but actually, when you look at sort of sustained trophies, we were never one of those clubs, were we, that ever just
nah.
sustained a good, I don't know, like a 5 years of just back-to-back league titles and
No,
cups and
no, no, no.
whatnot. But we just weren't there, were
We
we?
weren't the Man City and we weren't the Mourinho's Chelsea, right? It was on and off, but it was the struggle. It was the moments of brilliance. It was the moments of magic that captivated me. It wasn't the consistency. And you know what? Obviously, as a diehard fan, you want that consistency. You want to be lifting titles every year, right?
Yeah.
And there was a period you'll remember when we won nothing under Wenger until the FA Cup in 2014. Don't quote me on that, but I think 2014, right, where Ramsey was being absolutely insane. But we won that, and that was the first time I saw Arsenal lift a trophy in well over a decade, and I was truly, truly happy. It was an FA Cup, right? And everyone said it's just an FA Cup. It's not the Premier League.
Yeah,
right?
no.
But I still felt truly, truly happy for the first time, and I was like, you know what? All these years, I've never questioned Wenger. And I've said, no, I'm Wenger in. Whatever it wasn't even that question back then. But out of all of that, I was still an Arsenal fan. And to this day, I still am. And nothing will change that.
No, and isn't it interesting as well how actually and we've got to throw big respect out to clubs like Manchester United in that is that it was always there wasn't this chopping and changing of managers back in those days.
No.
Arsene Wenger was all we knew.
No, exactly. To be fair, I became an Arsenal fan, and all I ever knew was Arsene Wenger until Unai Emery took over. Right, and that's the bizarre thing. There's a generation of fans like us who all they knew was Arsene Wenger. It wasn't that every 2 years or 3 years or every 18 months you had a new manager, right? The game has changed so much from back then. The managers would get time, right, to develop their team, to bring their players in, right, and dirt cheap players, academy players in, to actually build a side that was capable of winning. Yeah. And even then, it was so competitive. You will win one year and you didn't know what the hell was going to happen next year. You couldn't go out there and spend 200 million on 4 defenders and say, you know what, we're going to win the league. It just didn't happen. But obviously, there's benefits to this system as well. Obviously, the Premier League's gone so global. The reach is so wide now.
Yeah. Easily, we're so lucky, aren't we? The best league in the world, isn't it? I mean, look at today's results. I'm sure you were going to depress it. You were going to call on my depression, weren't you, today again with today's results? But doesn't that just prove how great this league is? Is that there's no given results in this league, and it's been like that since it's been branded. To be honest with you, anybody could beat anybody, and I mean, just a final one on the history from me is that we are the only team that has been unbeaten. I just do not think we're going to see that again. I literally do not think.
Yeah, most likely. But it's an excellent segue onto the results, to be fair. So the first topic I actually wanted to talk about today was our...
Let's get it over and done with quickly, eh?
Absolutely. But you know what? It's something that we have to actually discuss. It's our recent form. So looking back at the last 3 results, we've played Liverpool twice in the Carabao Cup semi-final, and today's result against Burnley. Now, let's break those down as a holistic, right? So we're 6th in the league, game in hand, what you call 2 points behind United, who sit on 4th, right? Today's win would have taken us to 4th, 1 goal difference, with a game in hand above Manchester United as well. Let's talk about today's results. What did you think?
Gosh, it feels like a loss. I'm not going to lie. it felt like a loss. I was watching the game. I missed the first 10 minutes of it. It's probably the best part of the game that there was from when I listened to the commentary. I think, look, we know what we're going to get with Burnley. They're always going to be there and hard to break
bottom
down.
of the league,
and
man.
that's really yeah. Well, you say that, but actually they've got something like 50 games in hand, you see. So once they've played all of their games, and that's the difference, isn't it? Really, we weren't playing a Norwich here. We weren't even playing a Newcastle. We were actually playing a Burnley, who, on paper, you'd think that this should have been a regulation, 2-3-0, whatever win. But we also know that actually the game over at Turf Moor early in the season was pretty much carbon copy, albeit that we won it by one goal. Similar kind of game, I have to say, and I will talk about the context of how our squad is looking at the moment, and give you an analysis and link of that. But what I have to say is that even with the team, the very constrained team that we had, even with what we put out,
we put our 5 untested youth players on the bench today.
You could argue that actually that was a very attacking team.
It was,
and we had enough to finish them, but we didn't, and that unfortunately is a failure of tactics. It's a failure of players' heart. They just didn't look like they were up for it today, and that's unfortunately been a feature through January. Well, one thing I have noticed, and it'd be a good stat to find, our reaction to losing games. We generally end up losing another game after we lose a game, and that tells you a lot about the mentality. Don't get me wrong. You know, we've talked about this prior to podcast and whatnot.
Absolutely.
We are turning a corner, and there is certainly positives there. But I have to say that today has really, in my view, dented our top 4 hopes. There is a link to a lack of players. I mean, we talk about Xhaka being a liability. Obviously, what Partey did the other day. If I'm absolutely honest with you, Partey in that midfield today, we'd have probably still drew the game. I don't think he's that kind of game-changing player just yet, although he's shown glimpses of it. But that's kind of where I am. I think there were 2 points severely dropped. Are we out of the top 4 race? I'd say not, because I still think there's inconsistencies in United and in Tottenham. They will drop points, as will we. But that's the sad thing for me, is that actually when we take the United result, we take the Everton result, and we take this result, actually we should be, singing on our way home to top 4 at this stage of the season, and it would have been a great feat for Arteta. But that's where I am on today's result.
I completely agree with you. I think definitely 2 points dropped here. It was asking for a win. Our recent form against Burnley has not been good. I mean, if you go back a couple of seasons, we've lost games to them as well. We'll remember the infamous Xhaka red card, another one for the collection, But I think today, the failure for me, normally I would look at our very short-handed midfield, which we'll get on to, is the attacking sense. I think today, the attacking threat was there. We very much had chances, but there was no clinical edge, right? We weren't finishing the chances we were creating. So the best chance
10 shots on target, 10 shots on target out of 20,
absolutely.
which is probably as high as we've got.
Absolutely. So we're doing good, but I go back to that chance where Smith Rowe makes a run and it just puts you on a table for Laka, right? I expect Lacazette to put that in the bottom corner.
He's got to finish that, hasn't he?
He's got to finish that, right? And that's the difference, right? So we're missing that cutting edge in games. And don't get me wrong, Lacazette is the reason why the system under Arteta is working. Right? And it's working brilliantly,
I agree.
right? And it's letting the players behind him, the likes of Smith Rowe, Saka, Odegaard, express themselves, and they are class players, right? With a lot of potential, right? They can do excellent things with this team, and they can grow together. But
what is it, a confidence thing then, Z? I mean, what's going on at the moment? We've got all our attacking players there. They weren't troubling us too much. Let's be honest. They weren't troubling us too much in terms of knocking at our door. But actually, we've had this discussion ourselves, haven't we? The debate between Martinelli versus Smith Rowe. Well, they were both on the pitch today.
I don't think it's that. I think it's The players are there now. Young players are going to make some mistakes, and their decision making isn't up to that level yet. Remember, the average age of these players that we're talking about is barely 22, right? Martinelli, Smith Rowe, Saka, Odegaard, right? These players aren't yet up to that level where they can make good conscious decisions all the time, but that wasn't the case today. The case was the clinical finishing up front, right? Now, I go back 2 years. This is the kind of chance that Aubameyang would have put in the bottom corner. But he doesn't bring what Lacazette brings to the table.
Just a quick note, though, Zish, on their keeper. He had a fantastic game, didn't he?
We know what Nick Pope brings to the team. Nick Pope is one of the best.
He had a fantastic... I mean, the shot that obviously you mentioned the Lacazette chance, but there was a chance where Smith Rowe was played in, and I think he even got a deflection, which may have even took it... He saved it somehow. It was a fantastic save.
Through a crowd of players, and he still gets a hand to it. It was absolutely world-class. But we know that. We know Burnley's going to be hard to beat, right? We know they're going to say on a D block. That's what Sean Dyche has been doing for 5 years, trying to keep Burnley in the Premier League. How else? They've got the smallest budget, and he's still managed to keep them in the Premier League year on year because they know they're going to play a low block. They know they've got a world-class keeper, right? So you have to produce something special. And they are always going to try to catch you out on the break. And they nearly did at the end of this game, to be honest. Right?
They did, yeah.
Right?
They did.
If McNeil finishes that properly, game over, right? We would have lost all the points. So I consider us lucky in that regards, to be honest. But that's the game plan. So Burnley's game plan is known. We know their keepers world class, but the chances were created were good. I just think we lacked that cutting edge. And I agree with you. I don't think the top four hopes are gone yet. I think we still are in the race. Man U's still inconsistent. Tottenham's still inconsistent. So they are definitely going to drop points. But it's these kind of games that we should be capitalizing on, right? If we're not able to beat the teams in the bottom half of the table, no disrespect to them, right? COVID has affected them as well. So I understand that they're trying very hard and then still putting up, this is a result for them. But if you're going to make top four, you need to put in these games out of sight.
I agree with you, Z. I think the other thing as well is that the pressure that we're putting ourselves under is that the number of what we would consider non-winnable games are going to be needing an excellent performance, and we're going to need to take points. I mean, we've got Wolves away, I think, next.
And that's a tough game. That's a very, very tough game.
It's the form that they're on at the moment. Look, I've said this for a little while. I think we've got an excellent first 11.
Yeah,
I think we've got a first 11 that if we played every week until the end of the season, let's face it, we didn't touch on this, but we were out of all of the cups, which is another depressing state.
Absolutely.
I love an FA Cup, and I would have taken the Mickey Mouse Cup as well, to be honest with you.
I would have taken the Carabao Cup any day, right? That was the realistic chance to get in. Because the thing is, with these young players, if you give them the silverware, they'll stick around and they'll grow together.
The level of confidence as well, absolutely.
Right? So you have to win something to get players like Odegaard and all of these Smith Rowe Saka to stay. You don't want them seeing Arsenal as a, step to get into a bigger club.
Yeah, I have to say as well, and I'm sure you were going to bring onto it, but the transfer window as well and the slowness of it has really had an effect on this as well. We shouldn't be in a position, see, where we've relying on basically a midfielder who is a youth player that we've signed that is a little bit above his station, but clearly not ready to dominate midfield on his own, and that's where he's found himself. Lokonga has this in the last few games, and it's unfortunate because I think you find a lot of fans get on his back. It's not his fault, really. The fault, in my view, I'm sure you'd have asked me anyway, but I'll tell you anyway. Is of the club. Yeah. I wouldn't even put this down. It's very easy for people to start jumping on Arteta's back and whatnot, but I think there's two things that are going on really with this transfer window. Is it's far too focused on the Vlahović situation, which is going to happen, not going to happen. I'm sure we'll discuss it shortly in any case. But if you were going to let Ainsley Maitland-Niles out of the door, a classy club like what are we supposed to be, a classic club, would have said, look, Roma, you can have him, you don't have to have him all you like, but actually, just as Juventus are doing with us at the moment, he doesn't go until we find a replacement. And as we know, if we look at the business of what other clubs do, if you look at the likes of Man City and sometimes Manchester
Yeah.
United in some cases when they've got their transfers right, is that these deals are done prior to the transfer window even opening. A club with the connections that we
Hmm.
have and Edu supposedly have should have had a replacement, a midfielder replacement in before letting Ainsley go, knowing AFCON was
Yeah.
coming, knowing that actually Xhaka's got a red card in him every 3 games, let's
Absolutely.
say,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And knowing that actually we're going to be light in January. This January, as we've talked about offline, was always going to make and break the remainder of our season.
Yeah.
And especially where our form has been so good prior to that, the momentum. And look, it's all very well. I'm sure we'll discuss the Vlahović thing in a minute, but the priority, as we can see, connected to our recent form, is lacking in the middle of the
Yeah,
park.
to be fair, taking it back to the Burnley game, I think Vlahović and the striker search is not unfound. Considering what I saw today, the cutting edge missing, a good striker probably would have won us the game. Right, but I completely understand where you're coming from. We are very, very light on midfield. With Mohamed El-Neni gone, with Partey just coming back, who's had a torrid time in AFCON, by the way, and Xhaka being Xhaka, because he is who he is. At this point, anyone saying anything else is
Yeah.
bizarre, and it's not worth anything because we know what it is. Yeah, he's been like that since what we signed him in 2016, right? 5+ years. He's been like that.
Yeah.
So there should be no surprise that he was going to get sent off in a tough game where he was going to make a challenge. The Man City game, he's going to give away a penalty. All of that, we know, right? And yet, manager after manager have stuck by him. So there must be a quality that does bring. And when he's on form, he does do good, right?
Yeah, we like
Yeah,
Xhaka, don't we? I think
I
it's
think,
fair to say that he adds, our win rate with him in the team is far superior than
absolutely,
without, as we're
absolutely,
seeing at the moment.
absolutely.
He does
He
add.
does add value.
I know. There's a lot of Xhaka haters out there, and it's fair to say that we aren't in that
No,
group,
no,
are
no.
we?
I wouldn't hate him. Look, do I think he is the midfielder we should be putting out starting day in, day out? Probably not. Do I think he needs to be at the club or part of the team? I think for the immediate future, yes. I think Arteta made the right call not selling him, right? Keeping him around, giving him time. But when he is going to do something stupid, there is that thing that he's going to cost us games. But that's well
I
understood.
wouldn't have minded, Z. I wouldn't have minded him going last summer. If I'm honest with you, I'll disagree with you
Yeah.
slightly. There is that if there'd been a suitable replacement, I do see where you're coming from, and I know we've obviously discussed this before, and we do see him as a pivotal part of
Yes.
the
Yeah.
jigsaw there, and replacing him would be very difficult. But I think again, when we look at priorities and transfer targets, we should be identifying these and going out and talking to agents prior to transfer windows opening. So if he'd have
Hmm.
gone last
Yeah.
summer, I'd have liked an upgrade on him, and there's talk of Bissouma and there's talk about Bruno over in
Yeah. Yeah.
Spain, etc., etc. Those are the kind of replacements I think that we needed. But clearly that wasn't prioritized. He
He
stayed,
stayed.
and he's not been on bad form.
No,
I
no,
mean,
no.
when he's bloody been able to play, right?
He's been good.
He's
I
been
completely
good.
understand,
Yeah.
right? But I think the priority this summer on the transfer window was to bring young people out to get that spine of the team, right? So they had already spent money the previous summer on Partey, right? He wasn't cheap, 45 mil, right? And he's not off their transfer target. He's 25 plus. He's got a lot of experience, but Partey's been rubbish. Right, he's had a couple of good games. He's shown flashes of what he can do, but they'd already spent the money to bring in a player. Now, bringing a Xhaka replacement, a ready-made one, is going to easily cost you 50 mil plus, right? Remember, Fred
Mm,
cost Man U 60 mil nearly, right? So getting a
mm.
quality player like that takes time. So they identified Sambi as a player that could grow into that role until Xhaka phases out. Right, so that's the strategy as I see it. So Xhaka is still very much going to be the part, but they want Sambi to grow into that role. And going back to the main Nia's point, I'm actually very disappointed that he's left. I think every
Mm.
time he's played this season, he's shown flashes of what
He's
he's
played
played
well.
well. He's
Well,
shown flashes of what he's capable of in the middle of the park. And I would have thought Sambi and him would be the future midfield pairing going forward, or at least working around Partey swapping in and out if they were going to get rid of Xhaka. But anyway, that's all happened. Oh, Ainsley's gone.
Just a quick one on
Yeah, go
Ainsley
on.
though. Do you know where Mourinho's played him?
Right back.
A fullback.
I knew that was going to happen. Mourinho would have done that any day, right? But here's the thing now, right? I'm going to give you something that's going to make you more annoyed at that Ainsley transfer. Tomiyasu, he's gone for a couple of weeks, right? And he has been a pivotal part of that back four that has played so well, right? Now, he already had an injury, right? And they didn't have anyone to play in the right back slot against Liverpool. So they pushed him. He tried to play 90 minutes and he felt it again. So he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. Now, that's a stupid move, right?
Yeah.
When you had Ainsley, he didn't want to play there, but you say you do what you need to do for the team. He could have.
Yeah.
And now we have no one.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we have no one. Again, I think this is about management. I don't think Tomiyasu should have been playing against Liverpool. And let me just sort of agree with you on the Tomiyasu importance and appreciation club for him.
Absolutely.
He is as important to this team as Xhaka ever has been. Let's just call it like that. He if you, and again, I'd love to see stats on this, and I'm sure our listeners will hunt them out for us. But if you look at our win rate with him in the team this season, he just does something on that right side to help. I think Ben White is exposed when he's not there. However,
absolutely.
Sorry, you go on.
No,
I'm
100% agree with you. I think Tomiyasu protects Ben White more than anyone ever realizes.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's all, and that's fine. By the way, that's fine. That's not a weakness in Ben White. That's a team for you. However, what I would say, Z, is that Chambers against Liverpool in the first leg when we were 10 men down had an excellent game. He was there for an outball when needed, but he was compact at the same time. That system of the back three really worked against Liverpool. And again, I bring this point with the Tomiyasu thing back to management, is that clearly I could tell you in the first 5 minutes of that second leg versus Liverpool that Tomiyasu wasn't right.
No,
unfortunately, the first goal scored was on Tomiyasu's side. He actually slipped, allowing the momentum for them to score. And then I asked myself the question, is this guy really fit? It looks like, COVID affects us players in lots and lots of different ways, but I think it was that tight calf that which was partly the reason which kept him out. Now, Chambers played a blinder in the first leg, okay? Why did he not? You see, this is what we talk about when we talk about rewarding players for their performances. Why was it that Chambers was not given keep Tomiyasu on the bench? Bring him on when needed, give him some minutes at the end if we can. But Chambers. So then again, okay, he's made the mistake. Tomiyasu doesn't make today's squad. Okay, and by the way, I'm not saying that Ben White had a mare on that right hand side, or he was lacking. But where is the reward for Chambers' performances? He made the bench today, right? Is that clearly Chambers is the natural fit with Ainsley gone? Okay, I'd probably bring in Ainsley ahead of Chambers if he was here. I agree with you on that one. But naturally, surely, Z, Chambers is the next best after. He's proven to be the next best right back after Tomiyasu, has he not?
Absolutely. I think we've discussed this a lot offline as well. Chambers has just not gotten the chance that he deserves. I know people think that he's rubbish, right? I agree to the point that he's not starting quality, but as a backup, when we have no one, I completely agree with you.
And he's English as well, which is a big thing,
right? Yeah. So him playing on that right-hand side, people don't realize this, but he's in a similar mode to Tomiyasu, who can play centre-back as well. So when Ben White, the reason why it works so well is because Ben White has the freedom to step into midfield, right? That's the reason we bought him. right?
Yeah.
So it's that run. If you've seen him in a couple of games where he's played excellent, he makes that run, darting run through defense straight up to the final third, right?
Yeah.
And that annoys the other teams out because they're all out of position then. But at that time, when Tomiyasu or Chambers, who can do that, tuck in to protect, to form a back three with Gabriel and what you call Xhaka, because Tini's going to make a run at the front, right? That actually works. So I completely agree with you that Chambers should have been given the chance to play against Liverpool, and probably today.
Yeah. That's the sad thing, really, is that, I think there is a weakness there of recognising players who deserve to continue their run in the team. And I think, what we did have in our better run of form earlier in the season is that we had players competing for positions, in respective positions, and I think we're just losing that a little bit, and there's no surprise that there's been a link to our form in that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Arteta is sticking very, very hard to his first team, his starting 11.
I mean, you look at, for example, sorry to cut across his look. You look at, for example, Ben White and Gabriel now, for example, with the defenders that we've sold now. There's not really any competition for them, is there? Let's be honest now.
I think. Well, look, what you call Mari's gone out on loan as well, right? So we've.
And I'm not saying, by the way, that wasn't the right thing to do.
I'm not saying it wasn't, but it's just that, look, as a left-sided centre-back, right, we only had Mari as the backup to Gabriel.
Yeah.
We know Holding can play, and I still don't see the big difference between a left-footed and a right-footed centre-back. I think players are capable enough of passing for both foot these days, right? So Chambers could pass a ball with his left foot if needed be, right? So I can see Chambers, and Holding, I should be saying Holding, who's the third choice centre-back at this point, right? But other than Holding, who else have we got in centre-back?
You got Chambers, because you just mentioned him, haven't you, potentially?
That's it, isn't it? So we've got Chambers,
and that's what I'm saying is that we are one big defensive injury away from another crisis.
Absolutely, and that's not good team management. But since we're talking about team management now and the number of players, let's move on to our second topic, which is about transfers and what we need. Now, we've talked about midfield, and we're potentially talking about defense. Talking about defense, I just want to bring in another name that we've completely glossed over about right back. We still have Cedric.
That
he's getting nowhere near. And yes, he's not that level of a player, but give him a run. He was pretty decent in Southampton, right?
I think he's declined.
If I'm honest with you, because he hasn't played.
He's not the player that he was. He's not playing. And actually, he's probably one of the players that I would have been pro selling. We should not have extended. It shouldn't have been anything past a loan. He helped us put a plaster on our defensive woes at the time and situation. We handed him a contract. He's not really played much. I've liked him at times, and don't get me wrong. When you're comparing him to Bellerin, often your judgment gets skewed slightly.
Absolutely.
But look, his comparison now is with Tomiyasu, who's an absolute beast in that position. For me, our second choice is Chambers, as I've really sort of flown the flag for earlier. And after that, basically, you may even throw a youth player in before Cedric.
If you're going to do that, you may send Tavares in a right back. Maybe even that work.
Yeah, and he can play there, can't he? So there you go.
He can play that inverted role, which Arteta probably likes a lot. But let's get on to the main searches and the players that we've been linked with. Obviously, the striker is the big deal, but I just want to, before we go on to the striker search, I want to address the midfield. So right now, if we look at the registered players, we've got Thomas Partey. So let's ignore the attacking midfield area where we've got Saka, Smith Rowe, Odegaard, right? So these are the three attacking midfielders, if you will, right? And then you've got Thomas Partey, Mohamed Elneny, and Granit Xhaka, along with Sambi Lokonga, right? So these are the four players, of which only three are available because I think Elneny is still at AFCON. Right, so you've got three midfielders to choose from between Sambi, Xhaka, and then you've got Charlie Patino coming in, who I think is really unfair to be chucking him in there.
He's not ready.
He's not ready. I think he's got tremendous potential by everything that we're seeing, but I just don't think he's ready yet. he needs to be
Yeah.
bought in, but not under the pressure that we're currently in.
No,
Right?
you're
So
right.
midfield, right, is what we're looking at. So some of the players that we've been linked with, or two of the players that we've been linked with most, is Arthur from Juventus and Bruno from Lyon. Right?
Yeah.
Right. Now, I'm not sure how much you know about them, but Arthur used to play for Barcelona. Swapped
Yes, he did.
with Pjanic in that the most weirdest transfer I've ever seen, to be honest. It was, it was. I don't want to use the word, but it was very dodgy, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's not the correct term, but it just seemed dodgy to me, right? So Pjanic hasn't done anything in Barcelona, and Arthur hasn't done anything in Juventus. So just looking at this season, I think he's played 9 games or 8 games, right? 4
Yeah.
of them which have been starts, and he's played like 317 minutes. So he hasn't played a lot of football, but we're linked to him. And Juventus, I think I was reading that they were trying to ask for Thomas Partey in return, which is
Yeah, silly.
which is
Silly sods.
absolutely silly, right? So I'm going to throw some stats at you for Arthur first, right? And obviously, the stats are based on this season, which he's played very little of, so take that with a bit of pinch of salt. So just looking at a couple of things that will for the stats for the midfield. So pass completion rate, he's sitting at 89%, right, which is, for reference, higher than Xhaka and Partey, which both sit at like 86, right?
Yeah.
So obviously he can pass. We know that he's a decent Michael.
But isn't he? Is he a short passer of the ball? Isn't he?
He's your Jorginho, really.
Yeah, he's that kind of Barcelona-esque kind of tick-a-tacky kind of short pass back, short pass, a bit Jorginho-esque,
Yeah,
isn't he?
he's Jorginho-esque, but I think the important stat that we're looking at right now, because Arteta likes to play with that 2-man holding defensive midfield where one of them drops into the defence when, like Xhaka gets into left-back position when Tierney bombs up the field. And the important stat is that for tackle interceptions per 90, Arthur is at 3.14. Very limited minutes. That is worse than Partey, Lokonga, and Xhaka. Obviously better than Elneny because he hasn't played. Well, it's not even better than Elneny. Elneny's at 4, right? So, but he hasn't played that much, so I don't want to compare him really.
And that's what I was going to say. The counter argument would be he hasn't had enough minutes for him to get those stats to show. Yeah.
So, and he hasn't got enough time. So it just seems to me, if you remember, we bought that guy from Barcelona, I think Denis Suarez, when Emery was here. It just gives me that vibe. It's a player really underutilized who's lacking fitness. And that's what happened to Denis Suarez. He barely played anything because he was just not fit. Right?
Yeah.
And it just seemed like a panic buy, or panic loan rather, that did nothing.
Yeah.
And we need someone to come in and make an impact.
Hit the ground running. Yeah.
So it's just doesn't, for me, I'm just not sold on him. He's barely played more minutes than Mohamed Elneny, who's played nothing.
Yeah. So I've got a kind of pro and versus argument for this one. I think that we've seen. I will go the pro first. That in the last transfer window, is that we can trust these guys with who they select for transfers. I think you would be struggling to find an honest Arsenal fan who will say that actually the last summer transfer window, any of those buys weren't either successful or would bear success in the future. So I think I would say that there's certainly, from my perspective, is that I wouldn't have too many qualms about whom they select. I haven't looked into his stats. I don't know too much about his current form and statistics for Juventus, but I do know and hear that he was actually, he didn't make it, but he was quite good for Barcelona.
He worked.
When he played.
Yeah, sorry to correct. He worked in that Barcelona La Liga system, right?
In the system,
right? And that's very important. Now, if Arteta wants to get him, if he gets him, right, Juventus playing hardball anyway, he has to adapt. And you know what? I'll take that pro with you that these guys, Arteta and Edu, have been very, very good at getting players in.
They know how to identify a player, and I think that's proven, isn't it?
So I can give them on that. The other player I want to quickly touch on is Bruno Gumires, right? Now he's played a lot of minutes. Right,
Yeah.
he's played the most minutes out of probably compared to Xhaka and Partey as well, and his stats look comparably very decent. Right, 87% pass completion rate, which is better than Xhaka and Partey. Right, and he's tackles and interceptions at 5.11, which is very, very good. That's quite a high level, and it's not just that, he's quite creative as well. Right, so I think he's a good player. So he's got progressive carry 8.63 progressive carries per 90, which is quite elite. So I would prefer them going for someone like Bruno. Obviously, you have to take Ligue 1 into account in that regard. We've learned that the hard way with Pepe.
I was going to say,
right, we've learned that the hard way with Pepe. But he's young, right? So it's a player that you can see a future with. So he fits the Arsenal thing.
Yeah. Let me finish my against pro, because I went with the pro on the Juventus guy, and I think what's indicative of why you wouldn't want to touch this transfer is that Juventus are trying to push for a longer loan of 18 months, whereas Arsenal don't want anything more than a 6-month loan up until the end of the season. So that would give you some indication that there is some element of experimentation within this particular deal. Could it work? Yes, it potentially could do. I think he's probably suited more to our system and the way Arteta wants to play, in terms of moving the ball up the pitch more, in terms of having more touches of the ball as it moves up the pitch, compared to the Juventus system, which is probably, he's clearly not getting minutes out there. What I do like about it is that the player wants to come. And actually
he wants to play.
He wants to play. And once upon a time, there was a player in there. What I would like to see is, if it does work out, is that he takes the Xhaka role. And if it does work, I think it can be fantastic. But don't neglect the point of why Juventus are trying to offload him for probably the remainder of his contract.
No, absolutely. I think it's not just that.
And we only wanted a 6-month loan.
I think you have to take the wages into consideration, right? I think he's on probably very high wages, as is the case with Barcelona and Juventus, always paying their players stupid amount of wages, right? No, Barcelona's £1 billion debt for a reason, because they pay stupid amount of wages. But no, I take your point. I think I do trust Arteta, and I do, but I think they have to be very, very cautious with a player that hasn't played. For me,
I'm with you, Z, that Bruno Gumires would fit the bill.
Yes.
I've again not seen as much. Look, us Arsenal analysts, fans, whatever you want to call us, we don't know anything until we've gone onto the little YouTube icon on our phones and looked at 8-minute clips of these players before we rate them. Let's be absolutely honest. We know true experts as the people who are paid to do it are. And from what I've seen of Bruno, yes, he looks like he could fit the bill. And you're absolutely right. We've got to give consideration to the fact that he is playing in a very different, less competitive league than where Arsenal are at the moment. However, what's the most important statistic in all of this? The number. What's the most important difference here?
Well, the red cards.
No, well, that could be the case. I'm talking about the ching, the money.
Yeah.
To release Bruno Gumires, you would be talking of around 50 million
easy.
pounds. Certainly, I believe that the figure that's been bandied around is around 45 million euros. We're dealing with a club that we're not dealing, but we would be dealing with a club that we know are very, very difficult to deal with, although we've done business with them before. It's just not going to happen in January.
If Vlahović
does miraculously
Yeah.
happen, and it could happen, there is no way in the world that financial package is going to come alongside another big
Another 45 million
spending
pound player.
45 million
Yeah,
midfielder.
yeah.
Yeah, I think what this strategy has been in this window is they've gone absolutely all out for that sort of striker because of the Aubameyang situation, and I think what they've tried to do is heal the plaster with a plaster with the links to the chap from
Yeah.
Juve. Now I have to say to you, the club have fallen, and they've played very dangerously, but they've fallen very, very fortunate with
Yeah.
Partey and Ghana weren't supposed to get knocked out
No,
now
no, no.
from their previous record. You can see the look on his face; he's devastated, isn't
Yeah,
he,
yeah, yeah.
being back in London? But then he blew it as well with the red card, didn't he?
Oh, well, you can probably try to put that on. He's devastated, but
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
taking the sarcasm out of it. But yeah, I think he probably needed a bit more rest before getting back chucked
yeah.
into the team. You know, you have to look after the players' mental health more than anything as well these
Mm,
days. So I think probably rest, but Arteta couldn't have helped it. I don't think he made the wrong call. You have to pay a
mm,
player like Partey as soon as he's available. Right, you have, especially when you're
mm.
short. So, okay, no, that's good. I think both of the players, I 100% agree with you with Bruno. I think he's more of a summer signing, it seems like, where Arthur seems like the
Mm,
kind of person they want to get over the line to get backup on someone on the bench at least, right?
yeah,
With what you call Ainsley Maitland-Niles gone. Okay, let's move on to the blockbuster signing then. The one they have been going all out for, it seems like, and that is a striker. Now, I've done a bit of a background, a bit of research, let's say. So
I have to say I really enjoyed your piece,
the
your
stats
written
bomb, yeah,
piece, and yeah, it was a brilliant piece, and I've shared it out to other fellow Gooners as
yeah,
well, and it was a great article.
yeah.
I liked
No,
it.
no, thanks. It's going to be. I'll leave the link down for everyone to read it as well. It's on Dušan Vlahović and why he may not be the player that Arsenal's looking for. But anyway, the players that Arsenal have been linked with the strikers department have been obviously Dušan Vlahović at the top of the list. Some of the other players that have been linked have been Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Alexander Isak, and Ollie Watkins. So what I thought was we'll compare these three, right, with the players that we already have. Obviously, that is Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang at the top of the list, along with Alex Lacazette. So just to clarify, I'm looking at the stats from last season, and that's because obviously Aubameyang suddenly stopped playing for Arsenal this season, so I don't have that much of a
Mm,
record to compare it to. Whereas
yeah,
last season he played the full season, so did Lacazette. Play 31 games really. So you know, um, so we can compare that. So just to take it on, in terms of all of these players, Vlahović 21 goals, 3 assists. Isak 17 goals, 2 assists, and then you've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin with 16 goals and Ollie Watkins with 14 goals, 5 assists. Then you've got Lacazette with 13 goals, and at the bottom, we've got Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang with 10 goals. These are all league goals, by
yeah,
the way, right?
yeah,
So we're just looking at league. So just looking at that goal part, which is what a striker's job is, Dusan Vlahović, for his age, is head and shoulder above the players that we've got,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
his price tag of what we're thinking 75 million euros or 50 million with Torreira on, right?
yeah,
It's coming to be 60 to 75 million euros plus a pay package, which is probably going to be more than 150,000 per week.
yeah, yeah. Big
Big
bucks.
bucks,
Yeah,
right? So, and he's, remember, 21, 22, so he's not old, and he's only started to kick around a lot, what you call last season and this season. And last season, he's absolutely been fantastic. And this season, again,
yeah,
he's been fantastic, right?
yeah.
Now, based on all of that information, what is your feeling on, let's talk about Vlahović first, the one who will be linked with the most.
Yeah,
What do you think?
yeah. So again, I link back to my comment earlier, Z, around us Arsenal fans just suddenly becoming experts on players that we're linked with. I've obviously heard of this guy, but I've never ever felt that we would be. It was always a dream,
Yeah.
really, that I'd never felt that he would ever be interested in us. And so from what I've seen from YouTube clips, and I must admit, I watched the full game the other day.
Oh,
Fiorentina
nice.
were playing earlier, sort of in the middle of the week. and I have to say that he's a lad who knows where the goal is.
Absolutely.
I look at his build, and I mean, look, we know many people of different ages, but he doesn't look 21, does
No,
he?
no, he's a big
Let's
lad.
be
He's a
honest.
big lad.
He's a big lad, and he's built like somebody maybe in their 30s. You could argue, to be fair.
He gives you that
What I
Lukaku
what I
vibe, doesn't he? The size, the physicality.
absolutely what I like most about him is, and I think again, who are we to distrust the experts who know and see the stats, is that he's got just this attitude about him, an arrogance that you want to see your striker have. Aubameyang had
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
He had it. You just knew that when that ball was in front of him, you could close your eyes
He'll
and
score.
he'd be rippling the
Yeah,
net.
absolutely.
He's unfortunately he's lost it over the last 6 to 12 months, whatever you
Well,
want to
you can
call
say
it.
the
Since
18 months
pe-
since basically.
people will say he signed his contract. Since he signed his contract, I'm not necessarily one of them.
Yeah,
I think that there are other things that with Aubameyang, I'm sure we'll at some point discuss.
absolutely.
You
Yeah,
and I
yeah, we
will,
will.
but that there are other contributing factors. But this boy is in the form of his very short career.
Absolutely.
He's got an arrogance. He's got a swagger about him. And now I read your
Yeah,
article, and actually it opened eyes really in terms of I liked that we've spoken as well, haven't we, about
yeah,
whether he would fit in our system. Is he still young enough to adapt to our system, etc., etc., etc. But just on raw, I want to score goals. I'm a beast. You get the ball to me, and I will put it in the
yeah, yeah,
net. He can really, I think, come into this squad and absolutely cause. Now, I'm not saying it's going to, and you allude to it in
yeah,
your
yeah,
article as well, and that's where I'm agreeing with you. I'm not saying that he will do it in 2 weeks or four
yeah,
weeks or a month or 2 months. He may not even be ready before the end of the season before we see the best of him if he were to
yeah,
sign for
yeah,
us. However, I have no doubt that he will be a success in the Premier League wherever he goes. If he finds a
yeah,
team that can service him,
yeah,
you look at Harry Kane. I'm looking at him as well. Similar kind of mold in terms of build
yeah.
and that kind of
Style of play.
uh, style of play, back to the wall, kind of back to back. You know what I mean? He's ready. He wants the ball. Every time, and the goal. I mean, okay, he took a very poor penalty and missed it, and again, I think that's born out of his
Yeah,
arrogance.
yeah,
I really do. I didn't mind, but I mean, the team wouldn't have mind because obviously I think they won some like 6-7
yeah,
nil. On the night. However, the goal that he did take, Z. Oh my God.
yeah, yeah,
It was class. It was quality, and this is a boy who knows where the goal is. He is beyond his years at
yeah,
this moment in time, and I think with the right manager,
yeah,
right, and somebody who has you have the conversation with him, and you say you're our
yeah.
Bamiyang.
You're the main man.
You are our man. You are the main man. You will make it here, and you can actually help us win
Hmm.
things, right? This boy will be thinking, do you know something? Right, I'm 21 years old. I've got years left in the bank. I don't necessarily, this is basically the Borussia Dortmund move for Haaland.
Yeah, yeah, could be. Yeah, yeah. So Borussia Dortmund move for Haaland is very much a stepping stone for him, right?
Stepping stone,
Yeah,
yeah. I'm not saying that he's going to be, if we sign him, an Arsenal legend and will stay here forever. The unfortunate thing is the players who start banging in lots of goals, showing lots of good form, end up starting getting
yeah,
linked.
yeah.
But I do think that we could have him if we do sign him and get some and win some silverware with him. I do think that, yeah.
Absolutely, and I think something you said actually will make a lot of sense for Arsenal and it's something that Borussia Dortmund are very, very good at doing. They've done this Jadon Sancho as well. Yes, fine. If he uses us for Arsenal as a stepping stone, get 150 million for him. Right,
Yeah.
right. There's going to be a club in Spain, i.e., Barcelona or Juventus, or his dream would be to play for Juventus. I guarantee you, they can't afford anything right now. But 3-4 years down the line, he bangs in the goals in Premier League, and
He'll be
he'll be
worth that.
worth that.
You'll get your money
Absolutely,
back plus
plus
more.
more. So in that regard, I 100%.
So he makes business sense, doesn't he? He absolutely makes commercial business sense, because you're absolutely right, is if he doesn't give all of his years to us. And look, this, by the way, it could work the other way around, V. Let's not rule that out either, you know. He could become an absolute Arsenal legend here and say, do you know what, I want to finish my career here because of you know. But do you know something? This is what this today is a typical example. You're not just. I'm not just talking about the physical side of missing chances. I'm talking about the soft issues are really important here. The mental issues, the character of the team. You know, we need somebody in the middle of the park that is an absolute arrogant twat. You know, an absolute see you next Tuesday, bullying opposition defenders and letting them know that he's there. Do you know what I mean? And we're missing that. You know, Saka, he's great. You know, he'll turn it around. He'll turn a couple of players and he'll show a few silky skills and step overs and the ball into the box. Same with you know, Martinelli under the side. I'm so glad he's playing now. Same with Smith Rowe. You know, but you know, we've got to at some point. You know, Lacazette's not going to be there forever. You know, I'm a big Lacazette fan. You know, I love Lacazette. But if we need character in the middle there. And, you know, Aubameyang did it to an extent of finesse. You know, finesse shot on PlayStation.
Absolutely.
That's
the L1.
That's it, the L1. Aubameyang is your L1. You put him through, he's going to finish your chances and he's going to do it in style. What I think we need, and the characteristic that's missing in this team now, is an absolute knob of a player that is going to annoy opposition defenders, that the other players in the team will go, do you know what, if we give him the ball,
he's going to score. He's going to
finish it.
Do you know what? There's a player, and apparently Vlahović idolizes him as well, Zlatan. Right, he is trying to mold himself into that Zlatan Ibrahimovic style arrogant player to say, you know what, you're welcome, I'm here. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I 100% take your point about the arrogant, the character up front, the player, you know, the superstar who the team works around, and he's going to win you the games. He's going to score the impossible goals. He's going to do stunts at 90 minutes, you know, to get it. And to an extent, his physicality and his ability in the air will help all of the crosses that Arsenal put into the box, because right now we have no one. I mean, Xhaka is probably our best player, outfield player for aerial win rate, right? So that will definitely add to dynamicness of the attack, right? The fluidity. My only concern, and I allude to this in the article as well, and obviously he's a very young player and we have very limited time to observe him. And again, disclaimer out there, we're not Arsenal experts, we're not scouts, right? We're only going on the data or the 10 minutes YouTube videos that we have in front of us, right? And we're in no place to judge, to say whether this kid is the real deal or not. But from what we've seen, he seems like the good player. But the only thing that I keep going back to is he scores a lot of his goals from penalties, and you've missed and he's missed them as well, right? So generally he puts 90% of them away, and a striker's job is to take penalties, right? And recently Arsenal have been really poor at that. Lacazette and Aubameyang have been poor at those penalties as well.
They have.
Now, in terms of that, he scores at least 30% of his goals from penalties, which, you know, isn't great, but isn't too bad either, I would say. It's slightly above average, I would say, but it's still, you know, decent. My concern with him is him playing in front of the three players that we have behind him. So Smith Rowe, Saka, and Odegaard. These are the three main players that we have behind him, with Martinelli coming up and in and out, right? He's swapping with either Saka or Smith Rowe. Now, the problem is, he's learning that, by the way, but he doesn't play very much with his back to the goal, which Lacazette does. So dropping deep, picking those pockets, and allowing those runners who can then go forward, and then he makes that late run into the box for the cutback cross. Similar to what we saw today with Smith Rowe. He made the excellent run, cut it back for Lacazette, right? But that happened because Lacazette dropped, right? Yeah. So that's the style that Arteta's been playing.
He's not a dropper, is he?
He's not a dropper, right? He's the one who says, give me a service, give me a ball in the box. He's a penalty box predator. Give me a box in give me a ball in the box and I will finish it. And you know what? I trust him to finish it. But and we
Yeah.
will talk about this in the next episodes as well. He's very much similar to Aubameyang than he used to like. He's more similar to
Is
Aubameyang than he used to
is
Lacazette.
is that Z? And I know you want to wrap
Yeah.
up. Is that because the style of playing that we're playing at the moment
Yes.
with Laka dropping
Absolutely. Yeah.
more out of necessity than choice?
Necessity,
Because those are the players that are there.
but our team is built around those players.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that when you are talking about young squads
Yeah.
that are going to grow together, isn't the idea that actually you learn more as a youngster as opposed to somebody who's say someone Chaka's
No.
age?
I understand where you're coming from, but then what it is Arteta finding a system that works finally after 18 months, nearly 2 years in the job, then switching it
Mm,
again to suit Vlahović, and then Arsenal starting to grow again. It's not going to give you immediate results. Remember, our problem was similar to when we bought Nicola Pepe, right? He was a player who was killing it in Ligue 1. Again, let's take that with a pinch of salt because it's Ligue 1, but he was killing it, right? But he was killing
yeah,
it in a two-man forward team, playing as a second striker and scoring most of his goal with his excellent finishing and on the break. We bought him
yeah,
to do over some players and create more chances. And to be fair, he has been one of the more creative players at Arsenal. But he gets nowhere near the team because Arteta has judged him not part of that system that he wants to play, which is play out from the back, play chances, pass the ball around. And I just don't see Vlahović as the person yet. And again, I will say yet, taking part in that build-up play.
yeah.
Whereas even when you saw Aubameyang play, he was being asked to take part in that play. And it starts with the press at the top. Remember, you have to start the press at the top, and Lacazette presses.
He does.
Yeah,
He
and
does. He
Vlahović
does.
doesn't. He's more of a, I'm standing here, I'll finish it, give me the ball.
Yeah, yeah,
Right? So
yeah.
it's about, is it worth adopting your system around one player or building a system with a group of players that can grow together to, take that system to its peak? So
Yeah, I
that
mean,
was the
only time
question.
will tell.
Absolutely,
Only time will tell,
absolutely.
and we probably haven't got time for it today. But
No,
only time will tell. All I will say is that if Mr. Arteta is this all singing, all dancing, tactical Pep Mark II masterclass so great that Man City are holding out for him, that Arsenal have to offer him a new contract
yeah,
now rather than later, then I'm sure he will be able to get the best out of the system and the
and the
player,
player, yeah.
and that's all I'll say on that.
No, great. I think that kind of summarizes it quite well. Just to hit on some of the other targets quickly, I know we've gone quite over, but Alexander Isak, I don't know if you've seen much of him, but he's a decent player. I think in Euros he was showing his what you call form. He's pretty good, Swedish. Um,
Yeah, I like him.
yeah,
I like him. He's
he's
fast.
fast. Yeah,
Again, there's questions around system and style.
absolutely.
Then
Yeah,
they open even more questions. I'm not too sure that he's scored too many goals this
no,
season.
not this season. He's having a bad season this season. He's not scoring as many as he did last season. But again, he's more the Aubameyang carrying the ball type, coming up from the left kind of player. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah. And I'm sure you're going to mention Calvert-Lewin as well
Calvert-Lewin,
from Everton. I
absolutely
think is
Calvert-Lewin,
another target.
another target. So, but Calvert-Lewin's
I wouldn't mind him.
no,
I wouldn't
I
mind
wouldn't
him
either.
if we couldn't sign Vlahovic. Calvert Lewin is a good finisher, and again he knows is a boy who knows where the goal is. I think looking at Everton's situation at the moment, I wouldn't be surprised if he is looking
I wouldn't
elsewhere.
be surprised
He's
either.
got he's got he's got no loyalties to
Nah,
Everton. It's not like he's
he's
a boyhood scouser that
yeah, yeah.
he would come
I
to
think so.
Arsenal
I think so.
in a
I
heartbeat.
think so.
He knows where the goal is. He's Premier League proven. He wouldn't come at a cheap price,
No, no.
mind, but
But
he's somebody that I wouldn't mind.
none of these guys are going to come at cheap price, to be honest. Absolutely,
No.
it's a 70 million plus deal for any of them.
And going quickly back to your earlier comments and your article,
Yeah,
even if you were probably looking at that kind of lacquer
yeah.
replacement, you're probably out of the three of them. Calvert-Lewin would probably be closest, I'd
Yes, Calvert
say.
Lewin is probably the closest, but obviously the other person that I've thrown in my hat into, and I don't want to cover him very, very quickly, is Ollie Watkins. from Aston Villa. He is much more of that Lacazette style player
He
than
is.
any of them.
Yeah.
His creative numbers are very good. His assist levels are very good, and he can finish. So, but I just think Aston Villa probably won't sell him. And they're quite
It'd be
hard.
difficult to prize him away, wouldn't it?
And
Yeah.
they're very rich, so I wouldn't think they'll be very
And
happy.
and just finally on Ollie Watkins as well is that we're putting. I know Vlahović is also young at 21, but it just feels like that would just be
a bit too much.
Big pressure, a bit too much for Ollie Watkins just to be the. Don't get me wrong, he will be, he will be in terms. But this is what I was trying to say earlier about the soft measurables, right? Is that Vlahović at 21 just looks like he can burden the pressure.
Yeah. He seems
Not
like
too sure Ollie Watkins can.
He carries himself as someone who's ready for the pressure compared to
Yeah.
Watkins.
And again, when we compared to Calvert-Lewin, he has been the main man at Everton now, hasn't he? So those are really, really important things. And that's why my order would go as Vlahović number one, Calvert-Lewin number two. I'd then say Ollie Watkins only because he's Premier League proven number three, and Mr. Isaac number four.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably a good order. I think for me, my obviously I'm looking very much at the stats of the hardcore numbers. I can't help myself, right? That's just the way my brain works.
Yeah.
So, but I would still say Vlahović is probably more worth the risk because of his age. Remember, he's the youngest one out of them all. He's probably the same age as Isak. I think Isak is also 21, 22. So they're both quite similar, right? So in age. So I think probably for me, I think Isak is still not proven to me. He doesn't look the kind of person who would carry himself. So I would say probably for me, Dominic Calvert-Lewin first, because he's Premier League proven, he's English, he's ready, and he's got that big threat up front as a giant target to hit with crosses from Tierney. I'm just imagining that. So Dominic Calvert-Lewin probably for me first, then Vlahović, then Watkins, and then Isak, because Isak is just not. I'm just not convinced for him yet, because this season he has found it a bit hard. But
let me finally say on the transfer window before we go, because the next time we do a podcast is certainly going to be when the transfer window is closed. Just looking at the dates, do not be surprised if the target that ends up being landed is none of the above. And the reason why I say this, and I have my sixth sense with these things, is that look at what the club is. Not one of the best on the pitch, but one of the best off the pitch with PR and pulling things out of the bag when everyone's looking the other way. Look at the Thomas Partey. I mean, some of the blue tick pundits and journalists were all saying
not going to happen. Not going to happen.
At the time, Thomas Partey not going to happen. Arsenal haven't got the money, and then what happens on the 31st of January last year is they trigger the release clause of Mr. Partey.
It was summer transfer window for Partey.
Sorry, summer transfer. So I'm getting mixed up with the winter before with the few winters with Aubameyang, a few winters before. So do not be surprised if these 3 or 4 targets are being then their smoke screens, especially the Vlahović one, just to turn everyone's attention towards it. And do not be also surprised if nothing happens as well.
I think I would lean more towards nothing happening other than a midfielder coming on loan. Than anything else.
Well, that would be nothing then, because I could probably say to you then that our season will probably end in February. To be fair, we need. I think we joke, but on a serious note, we need signings. We need people who are going to just take that little bit of the team by the scruff of the neck and bring us into the top 4, and then hopefully challenge next season.
Take it to the next level. But I completely understand. Listen. Thank you very much for that, man. It's been excellent talking to you.
I've really enjoyed it, honestly. I really have.
I hope our listeners enjoy it as well. And we'll be back next week with the All Gunners podcast. Stay tuned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye. Bye.